When you hear that from the Packers side of it, that say, hey, the Bears are the scariest team to us in the division, as the guy that covers the Lions, how do you feel about it?
First of all, I'm fading the Packers this year, so they can talk all they want. I'm fading the Packers this year. Tough division. They're not going to have Micah Parsons right out of the box. If you fall behind early in this game, there's no room for slippage. They could be chasing this division from week 1 on. I'm fading the Packers so far. As far as the Lions and the Packers go, that's all I'm going to say about that. I want to get to the Bears, because the Bears last year, with Ben Johnson as their first-year head coach, a lot of things to talk about as far as his relationship and the revenge games against Detroit. Detroit went 2-0 against him last year, although they did win the division. They did eliminate the Packers last year, so you got to respect what they did. He pointed out, big year for Caleb Williams, big coming out year. But a lot of those miraculous comes back, and they won those by the skin of their teeth. This league will have a way of humbling you. Ben Johnson had a lot of chirping at the Packers in particular, and he's going to want to come for the Lions. I really don't know that they're going to be able to repeat as division champs. I think in 23 of the last 24 years or 25 years, a team in division play has gone from worst to first in their division. I see that happening again this year for the Detroit Lions. Last in the division this year, I've got them winning the division this year coming up, because they are going to bounce back. They do have a chip on their shoulder. They are going to be healthy. They do have more depth, and I think they've got their offense stabilized with a new offensive coordinator. And as was mentioned, Dan Campbell, still one of the best coaches in the business. So I've got the Lions winning the division. I've got the Bears second, and as I say, I'm fading the Packers. I think they might bring up the rear and finish third in this division.
I'm with you that I fully expect to bounce back this season, but you go from 15-2 and one of the best teams in the NFL in 2024 with a 1-and-done in the postseason, and then follow that up with a 9-8 year and miss the postseason altogether. What went wrong last year? What was the number one thing in your opinion?
Injuries. Second year in a row, they led the league in man games, lost to injuries at key positions. They didn't have the depth. And you look at their secondary, when you're missing a Kirby Joseph and you're missing a Brian Branch, that really impacts what you want to do with your defensive package. And then you look at the fact that there wasn't a lot of chemistry. They were working in a first-year offensive coordinator in John Morton as Ben Johnson left and lost all that creativity and lost the chemistry they had on the offensive side of the ball. You saw what he was able to do in Chicago. All credit to Ben Johnson. He's got a great offensive mind, and obviously he's head coach material. So there's a big loss there. They had a first-year defensive coordinator in Calvin Shepard. So they were working in a lot of new pieces. They were trying to overcome injury. They were trying to develop chemistry. The offense wasn't the same. They weren't clicking the same. Weren't able to get the run game going. Frank Ragnow retired just before the season started. Huge hole at center. That guy was one of the best in the business and one of the keys to their run game. So all those things all told, a perfect storm. The season did not go the way they wanted to. They lost some big football games, but I think there's going to be more continuity this time around. They're going to be healthier. They're going to be deeper. They're going to have that chip on their shoulder. So that's what happened last year, and that's what I'm expecting to see as far as difference made going forward this year and why they return to the top of the division, guys.
I mean, there's no doubt they have a ton of talent, but even Amon-Ra St. Brown last year was pretty defensive of, hey, we got a lot of guys that can still coach. That coaching staff got decimated last year. What gives you faith in the coaching staff now moving forward?
Well, they didn't just lose their offensive and defensive coordinator. You all know that Aaron Glenn went on to be the head coach of the Jets. So those guys took coaches with them. Overall, they lost 8 different coaches last year in different parts of their program. So trying to bring all that together, there was a lack of continuity. And the guys on the offensive line especially weren't used to playing the positions that they were accustomed to playing the year before because Frank Ragnow left. They had some changes on that offensive line, and they weren't used to the guy next to them. So they had a lot to do as far as trying to develop things. And like I say, in this division, when you're chasing it, there aren't 3 or 4 weeks to settle in and really get your feet under. You've got to be there from day one in this division, and they simply weren't. And you saw that reflected in the fact that Dan Campbell took over calling the plays midway through the season because the offense wasn't working. So John Morton lost his job. They brought in Drew Petzing, and I really do think that the lack of continuity and the coaching across the board and trying to bring in new personnel really affected just the effectiveness and the overall chemistry of this team. And I can't stress enough how much injuries impacted this team. Like I say, Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph, 2 of the best in the business. Kirby Joseph got the highest contract for a safety in league history and then was not there to perform for this team. So that's a big hole.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And look, I love Dan Campbell, but there is no doubt that he's not the same kind of offensive genius as maybe a Sean McVay, a Kyle Shanahan, a KOC, so on and so forth. What would you say to people that think that if you have a guy that's not one of those X's and O's geniuses, you can't contend with them?
I think it really comes down to culture, and I think the culture that he has developed here, the identity that he has formed with this group. You guys watched Hard Knocks a couple of years ago. He just cried, pleaded for the buy-in. We're gonna have to work, you guys. We're gonna put pads on. It may seem crazy, but we've got to develop our toughness. And toughness, grit, character. These are really the traits. And even when they go into the draft, they're looking for a certain type of player that fits their identity, fits what they're trying to build in their program, and they're sticking to it, even if it means moving up or moving back to get the guy they want. So I really think they've committed to an identity here. And when you have that outside of the X's and O's, and you have guys who are really bought into the program that Dan Campbell is building and the culture that they're building here in Detroit, beyond what you're able to do X's and O's wise, I think you've got a commitment. I think you've got a group that's bonded together. And I think you've got a coach who guys are willing to go through the wall for him. We say that about a lot of coaches. It may sound cliche, but this group and this city, in fact, believes in Dan Campbell that much that I think that it elevates them to a different level in that sense on the field beyond the X's and O's.
Jahmyr Gibbs certainly should be elevated this year. Looks like he'll get more of the carries, obviously.
Yeah.
We cover a lot of fantasy football here. You know that. Yahoo is known for fantasy football. For all the people watching that are thinking about their draft, Jahmyr Gibbs, 101, you think he has a chance to be the best fantasy guy in the league this year?
Dude, I'm in like 7th Yahoo leagues in fantasy football, and I'm trying to get this guy in every single one of them coming into this year. Whether he goes number 1 or number 2, I guess we'll determine. If I had a pick, I would pick him number 1 simply because I know he's going to get the ball. Yeah, Bijan Robinson is going to get the ball as well, but the creativity, the way they're going to use this guy, Drew Petzing is going to have different things drawn up for this guy. They moved David Montgomery out of town, so he is going to get more touches. Having said that, in the long run, I'm hoping he gets fewer touches than maybe some might anticipate, because if the Lions get to where they want to go, they're going to need this guy fresh at the end of the season and into the playoffs. But he is going to get touches. He's going to get receptions. So in a PPR league, this guy is going to be a monster this year. I know that they've got the health. We're going to have Sam Laporta back. He missed a lot of last year, coming off of back surgery. Hopefully he's effective, but that'll open up more things, because you've got to respect the passing game and you're going to have to respect the run game. They got solidified on that offensive line. It's going to be a huge, huge, huge year for Jahmyr Gibbs. This guy's a record breaker. We've talked about it on our show, Bleav in Lions, and Glover Quinn, former Lion, co-host on my show, says already in this guy's career, he has got the makings of a Hall of Fame player, just as Barry Sanders was in this Lions jersey. So they're going to continue to build on this kid. He's going to be exciting to watch, and I'm going to try and grab him in every Yahoo league I can.
I mean, there's no doubt that moving on from David Montgomery definitely makes Jahmyr Gibbs a more attractive fantasy prospect. But is there any concern for you that, Sonic not having his knuckles, that there's going to be some drop-off in the run game or any adjustments for Jahmyr Gibbs?
I don't think that Isaiah Pacheco is a David Montgomery. I don't think David Montgomery got enough respect. I think he's underrated in this league. And this guy, I think he had like 8 weeks in a row that he had a touchdown in the red zone for the Lions. He was not just Sonic and Knuckles, but the guy on his own is a starting running back in this league. Isaiah Pacheco at one time was as well until the injury. Not the same player, but he's further and further away from that injury now. And I think he's got something to prove. And I think that he is going to be better than advertised and better than expected here. And that's going to be big things for Jahmyr Gibbs as well. I think it's going to be not the same Sonic and Knuckles, but I think that he's going to be able to do some things in the pass game as well. Talking about Isaiah Pacheco, I think he's going to open up some things and then be able to absorb some of those touches for Jahmyr Gibbs. Because as I said, the more Jahmyr Gibbs touches the ball as the season goes on, in a role that he hasn't had all to himself to this point in his career, I think it's going to wear on him. So you want to keep him fresh. I think an experienced guy like Isaiah Pacheco, who's able to take that step and fill in that role with that experience and with that talent that he brings to the table, another tough runner, is really going to be a boon for this running game.
Is the offensive line going to be okay?
It is. It really is. I like the fact that they put Cade Mays at center and made that acquisition. Blake Miller, their first-round pick, going to play right guard. I think he's a starter from day one. Penei Sewell, maybe the best tackle in the league. Whether you want to put him on the right side or the left side, he'll move to the left side this year. He's going to be just fine. You got those three guys on the interior of that O-line. They're going to be just fine. I really do think that offensive line is going to be stabilized now. I think they've got a vet at center that's going to be able to carry this thing forward. And as they get used to one another through training camp and through the exhibition season and into the regular season, they're going to be just fine.
We know Jeremy Fowler polled GMs, coaches, front office members across the NFL, the top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL. Jared Goff was 9th on that list. Let's Goldilocks this. Too high, too low, just right. Number 9 for Jared Goff.
Well, there are a lot of things that Jared Goff does well and a lot of things that Jared Goff does not do. He does not run. He's not going to get out and open things up like Caleb Williams does with his legs. That's not the type of player he is. But having said that, you look at this Lions offense over the last several years, one of the best in the business, not just in the NFC North, across the league. They've been one of the best offenses because of what they've got as far as their embarrassment of riches in that offense. When you look at Amon-Ra St. Brown, you look at Jameson Williams. I'm going to mention Isaac Tesla, who the Lions moved up in last year's draft to get. He's going to be the number 3 receiver, and he's got a talent that is going to break out. I think even in ESPN, maybe some of the Yahoo polls too, this guy is predicted to be a breakout player this year. So he's going to have targets to throw to. He's going to have Jahmyr Gibbs in the passing game, in the run game. He's going to open things up for that arm. I don't know whether that ranking is too high, too low, just right. I just know that when it's all said and done, this Lions offense overall is going to be at the top of the league, and they can't get to the top of the league without a QB that can get them there. So I got him ranked a little higher in my books. It depends on what you're looking for in your quarterback, where you want to rank him. But overall, he's going to lead this offense to the top of the league. And as I say, back to the top of the NFC North. So I'll just say that about him. Too high, too low. I've got him too low, but I guess that's a matter of taste.
For a fan base that waited so long to be so good, and now has watched a couple seasons decimated by injuries, what's success to the average Lions fan this year?
Well, it's first of all, it's getting back to the top of the NFC North, but beyond that, it's getting back to the NFC Championship game and getting over the hump and getting to a Super Bowl. There's nothing less for this team, for this fan base, for this franchise right now. That's what they expect to be. That's what Dan Campbell has driven this team to be. That's what he has this city believing in. And I don't think anything short of that is really going to be a goal for this team. That is the goal coming in. That's what they expect to be right now. So that's where I'm going to leave it. Nothing short of getting back to the NFC Championship, getting to a Super Bowl, and having that opportunity to compete for that ultimate prize is what's going to be acceptable here.
If the Lions are in the Super Bowl this year, it will be because of what?
Oh, that's a really good question, because it can be because of a lot of things. I think if it's going to happen, it's going to start on that offensive line. They are going to be stabilized. This offensive program is going to be able to advance this thing. The defense last year had trouble stopping the run. They're going to obviously have to do that this year and shore some things up. They've got depth there. They've got a D line that's stabilized, but it's all going to come back to putting all these offensive weapons together and making this juggernaut an unstoppable force going forward. So if they get to the Super Bowl, it is going to be because of this offense, because this offensive line is stabilized, because these weapons are able to execute at the level that everybody anticipates they can, which is why that ESPN poll had them as the number one of the best talented teams around as far as blue chip talent goes. And a lot of that was based on who they've got on offense. So they're going to get there because this offensive line is stabilized and this offense is able to do all the things it's capable of doing.